Well guys, today we'll be taking a look at three of your favorite Varmint cartridges and mine. They are the 204 Ruger, the 223 Remington, and the 22-250. Now, as you may have already guessed, these cartridges all work pretty good at 100, 200 yards, especially if you're hunting coyotes or bobcats. But what happens if you're stretching their legs a little bit further and maybe shooting at 300 yards? Maybe a bit further. Today we'll take a quick look at the energy numbers on these cartridges, and then we're going to get right out into the field and do some shooting to kind of see how they compare. Now when we get out into the field to do some shooting, I encourage you to watch the shots from the lower left-hand corner of the screen, and you should be able to follow the bullet right into the target through a phenomenon known as bullet trace. Now if you don't know what bullet trace is, that does not mean that I'm shooting tracer rounds. What that means is this: these bullets are traveling so fast and they're creating turbulence behind them as they fly through the air. They're disturbing the air so much that when the sunlight comes down and hits that disturbed air, it bends the sunlight, causing you to be able to see where the bullet was just fractions of a second earlier, so that you can kind of follow it right into the target. Now you may not be able to follow it into the target on real time. I get that. These rounds are traveling 3 times the speed of sound. But I've also slowed it down for you with some pretty good slow motion footage, so that will give you an opportunity to see them as they fly through the air. If you like today's video, certainly hoping that you'll click the like button and do subscribe if you haven't yet already done so. Feel free to share the video with all of your friends and neighbors, and I'm looking forward to your comments as well. Thanks again. As we start to look at these numbers, I have them arranged in such a way to where the fastest placed bullet is moving left to right. So the fastest placed bullet would be the 32 grain 204 Ruger. Next up would be your 40 grain 204 Ruger at 3900. In third place, you've got 3680 feet per second on a 55 grain bullet from your 22-250. And then in fourth place would be the 223 Remington 55 grain bullet with about 3240 feet per second of energy. And as far as the numbers, how they'll be arriving at 300 yards, which will be our testing today, you'll notice that the bullet that started off in first place with 4225 feet per second of speed is actually going to be in second place when it arrives. It'll have close to 2700 feet per second and just over 500 foot-pounds of energy at the arrival. But the 204 Ruger 40 grain bullet, by the time it's out there at 300 yards, it has overtaken the 32 grain 204 Ruger, and it'll have about 2756 feet per second at the arrival and just shy of 700 foot-pounds of energy. The 55 grain 22-250 will have a lot of speed as well at over 2500 feet per second, and certainly a lot of foot-pounds at 771 foot-pounds of energy. The 223 Remington will still be in fourth place though as far as arrival speed at 2174 feet per second and close to 600 foot-pounds of energy. Now as far as how these bullets will compare to each other, it's interesting to note that the 204 Ruger 40 grain bullet at 300 yards, that's going to be 2.7% faster than the 32 grain 204 Ruger, and it'll be 25% heavier, so it'll be really interesting to see how that one does. The 22-250 at 300 yards is going to be about 6.5% slower than your 204 Ruger 32 grain bullet, but it will be 72% heavier. And on a 223 Remington, if you were to use, something with a longer barrel, like a 24 or 26-inch bolt-action rifle, that would still be 19% slower than the 204 Ruger 32 grain bullet, but again, it would still be 72% heavier. Now, I realize that a lot of you guys are, hunting with a carbine. Maybe you're using an AR platform, perhaps a Mini 14. And so we actually did the testing with a 16-inch carbine to see how that would do. With a 16-inch carbine, the numbers are probably closer to this column right here. So rather than arriving with 577 foot-pounds of energy, probably arriving with about 497 foot-pounds of energy and just a hair over 2,000 feet per second. So really what'll be happening there, rather than arriving at 19% slower, it'll be arriving closer to 25% slower than the 204 Ruger 32 grain bullet, but it will still be 72% heavier rather. And in a moment, I'm going to just be posting some interesting numbers in here. These numbers right here are on your 22-250 at 450 yards. Let me move these over, in fact. There we go. Take a quick look at these numbers from a 22-250 at 450 yards and realize how close those really are to the 223 Remington out of a carbine at 300 yards. Pretty much no difference. The speed numbers are just about identical, with 2,031 feet per second compared to 2,018, 504 foot-pounds compared to 497. So whatever damage you're about to see done in a few minutes here from the 55 grain bullet out of the carbine at 300 yards, you can know that you'd get about that same amount of damage at 450 yards with your 22-250. Be shooting the water jug on the left, 300 yards, 204 Ruger, 32 grain, Hornady, Super Performance. Getting ready to shoot the water jug on the right, 40 grain Hornady Super Performance 204 Ruger, distance 300 yards. Getting ready to shoot at a distance of 300 yards with the 223 Remington. We'll be shooting the 55 grain Hornady Varmint Express at this defenseless water jug. Alright, this is the water jug that was hit at 300 yards with a 32 grain Hornady Super Performance 204 Ruger. I think I hit it probably pretty low, to be honest with you. I think I probably hit it down there. But even though I just barely caught the water jug, it was enough to do some pretty good damage on it. Alright, I'm walking up to the water jug right now that I hit with a 204 Ruger at 300 yards. I used a 40 grain Hornady Super Performance. Alright, this is the water jug that I just hit at 300 yards with a 16-inch barrel carbine, 223 Remington, 55 grain Hornady Varmint Express. Looks like I probably hit it dead center. If you look real close, there's a couple little tiny exit holes, which is probably where that VMAX bullet split up, and some of the exit holes are there from the bullet coming apart.